Hello everyone, this is Jeremy and welcome to episode 16 of Nuclear Earth Reirradiated. Last episode we built our frosted grape donut, nuclear fusion reactor. No, frosted grape donut works. And it's been running for some time. I had to deal with a couple weird redstone issues, but hey, it hasn't melted down, so I'm going to assume that means that everything's working. It's made a lot of power, it's running at just about peak efficiency, and it hasn't even filled up its neutron fluid tanks yet. Not that I actually care for neutron fluid. It has filled up our battery. And the other thing we did last episode that I want to check on is the passive production of titanium and chrome, both of which are done. Sick. So that's done by just duplicating titanium and chrome in the fusion replicator. All right. So with that out of the way, wow, this snow is laggy. What I want to do today is get into the deep Nuclearcraft fuel processing. Ugh, it hurts my eyes just to look at this, honestly. But our ultimate goal is to make Neutronium. Neutronium, or at least impure Neutronium, is made from processing the highest tier of fuel, and that is, I think FM is fermium. So fermium 257, or its oxide variant, produces... oh, that's super radioactive. Impure neutronium. Impure neutronium can then be purified in another fusion replicator, this time producing energy, weirdly enough. But that turns it into regular aberration neutrons. The normal way of collecting this, the neutron collector, is disabled. So there's no easy way to make neutrons. We have to go through all these steps. And we're eventually going to need blocks of neutronium, right? So it's 9 piles to a nugget, 81 piles to an ingot, and 721 piles to a block. And the blocks are used to make like the tier 6 miners, the neutronium compressor for singularities. This is all very late game stuff, but because of how incredibly much of it we need, oh wow, this even needs an infinity catalyst. Oof. Okay, tier 6 miners don't exist. Anyways, but because, yeah, we do need a lot of this stuff eventually, I figure we may as well start early. First thing to do then is find one fuel path that'll get us eventually to either low or high enriched, depending on which ratio of outputs we get, but will eventually get us to one of these fuels. So to do so, it's mostly a lot of digging through JEI, comparing ratios. All the low enriched fuels are 1 of the enriching material to 8 of the fodder material, and then the high enriched is 4 to 5. So specifically in the case of fermium 257 fuel, I noticed that if you do low enriched, you get almost all of your 257 back, right? 9 goes into it, 9 tiny clumps, and 8 tiny clumps come out, which means that if you're doing low enriched fuel, you basically just have to generate this fermium 254. Otherwise, if you do high enriched fuel, you get about half of each out, where you get 24 of the, 4 times 9? 36. You get 24 of the 36 enriching material out, and 32 of the 5 times 9, 54 fodder material out. So it's basically, and you also get twice as many neutrons. Point is, the goal is to try to make the fermium, I already forget what the 2 types were, 257 and 254 as much as possible. And then you have to then look at the next step in the chain to see, what makes fermium 257. Well, that's 255 and only 255. And what makes 254? Lowly enriched, it's at Einsteinium? But you get the point. I'm going to dig through this off camera because it's probably going to take me like 20 plus minutes to generate at least my nuclear fuel tree. It ended up taking probably an hour for me to list out all the various fuels and their production chains, because this pack adds a whole bunch of stuff beyond where Nuclearcraft normally ends. Basically, Nuclearcraft ends at Californium 252. Although usually you don't need to even go past Californium 250. That's the last useful isotope in Nuclearcraft. That's what's used to make the Nuclearcraft RTGs. So that would normally be like here. right? There's like 4 or 5 steps in Nuclearcraft vanilla, and this pack adds like another 6 afterwards. In addition, because these are pack specific, it's not, you know, there's no one's already made nice handy flowcharts that I could reference. I had to like search up each and every one and see, you know, what they break up into when you run it. Wait, HEFM2. Can we not run oxide fuels in? Oh no, here it is. Right, when you run it and then you reprocess it, you know, it's. Point was, it took me a little while, but I think I have it done. So ignore the like vanilla blocks; those are just placeholders to show the differences between the tiers. Let's read this as a queue. So first in, first out. We start with TBU. Well, I'm choosing to do oxides here because there's a specific bug with one of these. I think it was HECF 251, where the normal fuel variant, when we process it, so run it and then process it, it's giving oxide output from normal fuel. I suspect, I mean, this has to be a bug, right? But in any event, because it's giving the wrong outputs, we have to do the hotter steps in oxides anyways, unless we want to take the, like, we can turn oxides back into normal by smelting them, but, you know, if we're going to make a process or a fission reactor that can run the hottest fuels, like these are extremely hot fuels, as their oxide variants, then we may as well do the lower heat ones also in their oxide variants. My secondary goal in choosing which ones to use was to minimize the amount of waste. In this pack, unlike in, say, Omnifactory, there's really no use for the intermediates besides using it in the next tier, whereas in Omnifactory you wanted a little bit of each tier to use for like your Omnium and stuff. So my goal was to, you know, the outputs of a previous tier as much as possible to use it in the, you know, the ratio that it produced or close to in the next tier. Anyways, from the beginning then, we start with the 2 starting points being TBU. Oops, I forgot to pin one. Yeah, TBU and lowly enriched. Well, now that it's a Q, I can't pin at the pins go at, you know, at the whatever. TBU and lowly enriched uranium-235. So this, I'm just not gonna pin it. Those are the 2 starting points. TBU comes from thorium, which unfortunately there's no clever way to get infinite thorium in this pack. You kind of just have to get the ore, unlike in Greg Tech where you can get infinite from granite. I looked for that, but nothing cheeky with granite here. Even if we, let's see, even if we pulverize granite, so granite dust has no use, and then the rock crusher granite outputs cannot be, there's no cheeky way to turn any of these into thorium, unfortunately. But so be it. We'll have to explore ways to fully automate thorium and uranium for this. But anyways, TBU, so thorium fuel and uranium-235. The next step is from TBU that makes uranium, lowly enriched uranium-233 fuel. That goes into highly enriched plutonium-241, highly enriched californium-247, highly enriched curium-247, highly enriched californium-251, highly enriched californium-253, highly enriched einsteinium-252, and now, well, starting here, we're into content tweaker items, right? This is beyond regular Nuclearcraft progression. Lowly enriched einsteinium-254. There's like the one lowly enriched step near the end here. It's just what it has to be to make the ratios work out. Highly enriched fermium-253, highly enriched fermium-255, finally, highly enriched fermium-257. And we've reached the end. All right. So the hottest fuel we're going to run is probably this one at 1600 heat per tick. Oh, for what it's worth, the difference between oxides and non-oxides is that oxides produce 20% more heat and 50% more power. So if you do care for power of your reactor, it is generally worthwhile to run oxides. Anyways, we have to design a reactor that can handle 1600 heat per tick. For reference, that's a lot. The hottest vanilla fuel is probably about 900. That's probably highly enriched one of these. That's only 700. Let's see. This one is 900, and that's probably, yeah. And then we're into the content. So 900-ish is the hottest vanilla fuel. We need to almost double that. I'm AFK apparently. So there's almost assuredly not like just some well-known reactor design that handles fuels this hot very elegantly. That means we're going to have to come up with one. I am not a nuclear engineer. I'm not a Nuclearcraft engineer either, for what that's worth. But thankfully, someone else is, and they've made a website that can, if we plug in the bits, it does the work for us. Let me show you. This website here, leu-235.com, is a relatively new Nuclearcraft fission reactor designer that uses, well, it can use fancy AI machine learning strategies to generate a reactor for you. So I'm going to plug in the stats for our hottest fuel. Basically, if it can run our hottest fuel, it can run our less hot fuels as well. That means you don't have to load any of these configs. You can ignore that. The cooling rates for this pack are basically the default, except all the active rates are doubled. I think the active rates were doubled in a recent-ish version of Nuclearcraft, or they were halved in a recent-ish version, I don't know. And the website the default button hasn't been optimized, or hasn't been switched over to reflect that. Anyways, based on what default shows up in this list when you hit the default button, double everything. I'm also going to allow it to use Enderium coolers. It says Enderium. I'm like 99.9% sure that it's actually Resident Ender, and I have access to a lot of Resident Ender. Depending on how the reactor it designs looks, I may or may not enable helium or cryotheum liquid coolers. Both of those are things we can, liquid coolants we can generate relatively easily with some tricks. So yeah. Besides that, though, I'll let it use all the passive coolers, see how it goes. As for the options out here, ensure active coolers are only accessible by piping. Sure, why not? If you turn this off, you can get some reactor designs that you have to use phantom faces to insert into your active coolers. It might make your reactor slightly more efficient, but it's not worth the trouble. Only generate heat neutral reactor. The whole goal of this is to generate a reactor that can run our hottest fuel. So yeah, allow that, and then we'll leave symmetry on and use reinforcement learning. This is like the fancy AI learning bit. So with these settings, you also have to specify a reactor size. I'm just 9x9x9ing for now, more or less a random guess. And you hit the run button, and then you wait a while. It takes it a little bit of time, but it'll, do some simulating and spit out a reactor for you. Now, I'm probably going to have to turn off, actually, a lot of these. Stop. I'm going to turn off a lot of these active coolers or passive coolers because I don't want to have to make 30,000 types of passive coolers. I'll just turn most of them off. Given the relatively high heat state we'll be running, I figured actually passive coolers are probably not even worth looking at. So I turned off all the passive coolers. As for the active coolers, I just turned on Enderium and Cryotheum because Cryotheum is very easy to make. It's also a very good coolant, and it's easy to make, very good coolant. It has very few positional requirements. Every cooler has positional requirements, like must be adjacent to, a cow, a deer, and a horse or something. But Cryotheum is just must be adjacent to 2 reactor cells. And that's a very easy condition to fulfill. So I've been running for a bit, and here's where we're at so far. 403 casings, or 403 fuel rods to 282 coolers. Over time, it will get better. I think coolers pass fluid to each other. Based on the fact that it's generating this design, while I have ensure active coolers are accessible by piping active, I assume it's not going to make me run piping internally in the... I mean, we basically can't, right? Layer 1 is... I don't know. If coolers pass fluid to each other, this is like a kind of annoying but buildable reactor. If coolers do not pass fluid to each other, like running the piping internally to get fluid to all of these coolers is going to drive me in. Oh, we got better. 405 to 298 coolers. That said, 405 cells is way too many. I think my reactor is bigger than it needs to be. each cell is well, the number of cells is a divisor on your fuel runtime, right? And most of my run, let me check real quick. It's like 30-ish minutes runtime. I know you don't see this right now, but so I think I might end up with 2 reactors actually. A smaller one that can handle these extremely high heat fuels, and a less small one that could, like a larger one that can handle the hotter fuels. So I think we're gonna stop this, save this, that downloads a file. I believe it goes into it's supposed to go into the reactor planner, which can generate a building gadget string for you to build it. But we're gonna bump this big reactor down to maybe even 5 by 5 by 5. How can you let's take a look at how it does that. 5 by 5 by 5. By the way, this application is super cool. This here seems to be about the best we can do on the high heat reactor. So let's stop and save this, and then set another run to do the small reactor, or the large reactor with lower heat. For that, I will use the stats of, I believe, let me take a look. I think it's LEU 233 Oxide is our worst, or our hottest of our low heat fuels. So that's 75 heat. That's a lot less. And 216 RF per tick. The RF per tick, or no, 201.6, hold on. The RF per tick really doesn't matter because we're not optimizing for that. I'm optimizing for breeding here. Although, I mean, incidentally, it does actually produce a boatload of RF. All right, let's keep the same settings. Although for this, perhaps I will enable passive cryotheum coolers as well. Oh, wait. We can just cryolattice this, can we not? Yeah. Cryolattice handles fuels up to 160 RF per tick, or 160 heat per tick, completely fine. So I guess we can just build cryolattice of whatever size to do our low heat fuels. Perfect. I don't even need this generator for that. All right, then. This is our thing. Well, anyways, to make this, we're going to need a lot of cryotheum. So I'm kind of, my brain's all burnt out on Nuclearcraft today. Let's switch gears and set up a huge cryotheum farm. Cryotheum then comes from melting cryotheum dust, which is Blizz powder, redstone, and snowballs. Is there a very easy way to make snowballs in this pack, or do I actually have to? A froster. Okay, so this machine makes a snowball. Easy. Redstone, we'll probably have to set up a witch DML for it, although we don't get a lot. And unless, do you think our void ore miner makes enough redstone? Probably not, huh? We'll see. And lastly, the cryotheum, we will definitely need to set up a wood farm for cryotheum, or blizz rods. These, wait, yeah, blizz rods could be, oh, they could even be sagmill for more yield. But yeah, blizz rods come from the thermal blizzes, so we have a few, but let's grab ourselves a ender shard. And the next time nighttime rolls around, blizzes tend to spawn all over the place here because we're in obviously a snowy biome. So I'll go program this. In the meantime, because it looks like we're gonna need 2 root farms, one for witches, one for blizzes, I'm going to add 2 more tier 3 root farms next to this one. Got the components, and now it's nighttime again, so time to find a blizz. Of course, this is the same rule as when you're looking for like blaze or ghasts in the nether. If you're looking for them, you'll never find them. But if you're trying to avoid them, they'll spawn and harass you all day long. Come on. I get harassed by these from like halfway across the map because they're sharpshooters. Until, oh, there's one. Come to me. No, don't shoot me. Come to me. Captured it. Killed it. And programmed. Alright. As for witches, I'm pretty sure a mob duplicator is still spawning those. Yep. So let's, hey, you're paused. Did I not pause my... No, the other one should be paused too. How'd that witch die? You're not running, are you? You are running. Oh, would you look at that? Wait, no, you're... Here, pause you. Alright. Now the next witch that spawns shouldn't get automatically killed, and I can kill it. Let's just dump a little bit of fluid in there to start it up. Give me one witch, please. Thank you. Alright, this is too many witches. Turn on. Bye-bye. I added 3 more farms, all of them fully upgraded. The upgrades were by far the most obnoxious part, because making all those enchanted bucks, oh my gosh. I hate making these farms. But anyways, the one is for witches, one is for the blizzes, and one is, as of now, unused, although I'm sure that'll change soon enough. Each one, again, has its own, basically, it's the same storage system I'm doing everywhere. Has its own storage subnet, and this thing actually just makes enough snowballs that I don't think I actually need an external snowball source, which is pretty nifty. Now it remains to be seen if this is enough redstone, but we'll let it run and do its thing. What is the drop chance of redstone? 23% with looting. So 23 times 0.23 times 6 is about like 1.4 pieces of redstone per 80 ticks. Each redstone makes 1, is it? What's it called? Cryotheum, or is it 2? Each redstone makes 2. Oh, nice progress bar you got there. Anyways, each redstone makes 2, so 1.4 times, well, it's 1.4 per 4 seconds. So it's like just under 3 per 4 seconds. That's probably enough cryotheum production rate. Cool. So now that we make the raw ingredients, let's set up a little bit of processing to turn it into at least cryotheum dust, although we probably need the fluid more than we need the dust. In fact, I don't think the dust does much. Yeah, we don't use the dust for anything besides making the fluid. Okay, so let's set up passive production of jellied cryotheum fluid from these raw ingredients. The process involves a couple of machines here. So first we take our Blizz rods, we sag mill them into powder. It's the sag mill is the only thing that turns rods into powder. It also gives us bonus snowballs, which we may as well use. So the snowballs go into this bin, and if it's full, they get voided. There's a trash can down. Whoopsies. That's why my pickaxe is too fast. Let's see. Extract on brown. This. Insert on brown, high priority, insert on brown, low priority. All right. So anyways, that's how we trash the excess snowballs. Then the Blizz powder goes into a crafter here. I put a very high level capacitor in the crafter to make it fast, because why not? So this crafts them into cryotheum dust. Gets stored in this bin. For some reason, the crafter doesn't push into the bin correctly, so I have to use item conduits for it. Whatever. Storage bus on that to see the cryotheum dust in the ME system if we ever need it. Then a melter melts it into the fluid, which we store in a tank, and put a fluid storage bus on there. Now we've got the coolant. Next, let's do fuel processing. Our starting fuels are going to be thorium ore and uranium ore. Take both of these. These are both going to be processed through, I think, the industrial grinder, because they give the most useful byproducts. Like industrial grinder gives us a thorium byproduct, and this gives us a uranium byproduct. What a good deal. And there's some bonus other stuff that's not terribly useful in there. So let's set up a couple grinders to process this. The 2 industrial grinders share the same multi-block again, because that's totally fair and intended, right? The small dusts go into a compactor where the lead is sent back into the ME system just to be gone with it. And the plutonium is, along with all the other byproducts, are sent into this crate via a phantom paste, just for neatness. Then, because all of these things can then be turned into nuclear fuels by Isotope separating them. So thorium consists of mostly thorium-232, and we get this tiny bit of thorium-230 byproduct that I really don't care in the slightest about, because as far as I know, thorium-230 doesn't do anything. It doesn't make any form of nuclear fuel. It can be turned back into lead, I guess, if you cared, but you still have to process it. You can't turn thorium ingots, for example, into TBU fuel. TBU fuel has to be made by thorium-232. So no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Likewise, the uranium, well, processing the uranium is slightly more useful because this gives us some 235, which we can use to make lowly enriched uranium 235. And likewise, the plutonium gives us, I think I need the plutonium 239 out of this because I need to make highly enriched plutonium 241. Oh, wait. What does HEP 241 use? Uses 241 as the enriching and 242 as the filler. Oh. I should make sure I make enough plutonium 242. I'm definitely not going to get much out of this. This gets us a whopping one tiny clump per dust. Oh, right. That's what part of the reason we're running, where's my fuel? This one, lowly enriched 233 is for, because it produces a lot of plutonium 242. All right. Yep, so that's no worry. So let's take all this stuff and jam it through the centrifuge. Well, technically not a centrifuge, even though it functions like a centrifuge. It's an isotope separator. Once processed, we can take the small bits, put them through a compactor to, well, compact it, and then take the compacted bits along with all the large chunks, and I'm just going to throw it into another storage subnet. This is kind of, again, my solution to not having drawers in the pack. We just, something like this, I put a even larger cell in this one because we can. Holds not technically infinite, but a close enough to infinite number of items that I don't expect it will ever fill up when we're only using it to hold a certain number of types, right? There's, what, 6 different types here? So it can hold 8 million total items, just about. Good enough. So anyways, this is the fuel, and I guess the next step is actually we can even craft some of this fuel into, like, the thorium becomes TBU fuel, the uranium becomes lowly enriched uranium fuel, and I guess that's step 1. Let's do that. Those fuel pellets then get jammed into a couple of crafters, turned into the appropriate fuel type, which then gets jammed into fluid infusers where they get turned into the oxide type. The oxygen for it just comes from a single electrolytic separator, which, by the way, uses an incredible amount of energy. Perhaps not the most efficient way to make oxygen. I've also recently been told that apparently these these Nuclearcraft machines will accept Mekanism gases and automatically convert them to the liquid form, which is kind of neat. Anyways, when that's done, they get inserted back into the storage subnet here, and this will hold the initial fuels that we jam into our reactors. All right, so that's the fuel taken care of. Now that we already have the oxides too, when we process them, like, they stay oxides the entire way, so we should never have to re-oxidize this stuff. I think it's been oxidized as much as it ever will be. So let's I guess next step is to build the reactors. Since we only have the starting fuels right now, both of these are low heat ones, right? They're below the 160 heat per tick threshold that cryolattice can handle. So let's build a maybe like a 9x9x9 cryolattice reactor. 9x9x9 reactor uses just about 600 casings. Oh boy, that's a lot of bytes. Although most of it's just like boring stuff, right? Lead, process some coal. Still haven't done ore processing, by the way. About that. Yeah, do your thing. So that's the casings. And then, let's see, internally is 81 times 9. So internally it's like 721 blocks, which is split 50-50 between coolers. That is Cryotheum coolers. So 721 divided by 2 is 360. You get an extra cooler or an extra cell depending on how you lay it out. I think let's do the extra cooler just to be on the safe side. So that's 361 coolers. Yeah, it's not that bad. Do your thing. And then lastly, we have the reactor cells, which I don't think I put the recipe in yet, but that's not that bad a recipe. And we need 360 of these. So, all right, no surprises here either, right? Yeah, just some lithium, some iron, Boron. All right, do the thing. There's probably, I wonder what the bottleneck here will be. The processing of coal, maybe some alloy smelter stuff. I don't know. This will probably take like 10-ish minutes to craft. So I'll probably just wait for it to craft at this point. The bottleneck turned out to be, somewhat to my surprise, my steel production. So I am making steel on demand, and I thought it'd be fast enough because like the elite enriching factory is quite fast, but apparently not. I think the only thing I use this for is to make steel. So this is when I set up ore processing, I'd like have, you know, iron ingots passively available. I should probably switch steel over to be fully passive as well. But yeah, we're like most of the way there. Couple hundred more, 700 more steel ingots to go. Oh no, there's another 300 steel ingots to go there. Well, whatever. Almost done. Also, in case it was unclear why this reactor is called cryolattice, it's because you have a lattice of cryotheum coolers. Every other square is a cryotheum cooler, and then the ones in between are all cells. So the limit on cryotheum coolers is that they must be adjacent to 2 cells. Well, it works out pretty well like this then, right? Everything is adjacent to at least 2 cells. While I was waiting for my crafting to finish, I had an epiphany. Earlier I said that the active cooling rates in Nuclearcraft in the configs are doubled relative to what the what is shown in the the planner. Turns out if I just read the tooltip, I would have figured out why. This is heat removed per tick per millibucket. But coolers only use, let's see, it's configured here somewhere. They only use half a millibucket per tick. Boy. Let me see if I can find that here somewhere. Cooling, no, those are cooling rates. I swear there's a setting that tells you how much. Here we go. Maximum active fluid cooler use in millibuckets per second. So because it's set to 10, that's 10 millibuckets per second, or half a millibucket per tick, which is why the active cooling rate is observed here is double what was in the planner. So the planner's default values are correct. When building this thing, the copy-paste gadget can be quite nifty as well. So the first 2 layers are unique. So you have to build the first layer, and then if you just shift it over a little bit, you can make it into the second layer. But once you have 2 layers built, it's just these 2 layers repeat for a while. So let's put you back on copy mode. We'll go from this corner to that corner, then paste. So that's every 2 levels is this. So 2, 4, 6, 8, and then the top level should be a 1 of copy. So it should be an exact copy of the bottom layer. So we just have to shift this corner to there. And voila. There is a snap-built cryolattice that is missing 1 cryotheum. No, I'm missing some coolers. That's typically not a good sign, considering I thought I had exact count. Did I leave some? No? Alright, whatever then. I hope I'm not like... Wait a second. There's a cell missing here. There's cells missing throughout. Son of a... Alright. I might have some fixing. Oh, there's a cell missing there too. That means there's... Take it all down. Undo. Undo again. Now you can only undo once? This sucks. Fixed it, I think. All the holes were in that 1 column, so I just had to fix that up and we're good to go. Now to put the casings on it, basically every block needs to be touching a casing, so... Are you on range 9? Yeah. That should do it, I think. The building gadgets make this so much easier. Set of casings there. Set of casings there. And there. Nope, 1 more face. Thank you, building gadgets. So this should form the thing. 360 cells. Is that number correct out of 721? Yeah. And then is this number 361 times whatever cryotheum cooling 160? Let me do some math. 160 times 360, wait, 361, yeah. 57760 is what I expect. How is this number greater than that? No, I did 100. Wait, 160 is the cooling per cell, and 361 is the number of expected cells. I'll be getting more cooling than that. I'm not going to question it. I think we're right. In this reactor, then, as long as you run cell or fuel that generate less than this number divided by that number heat per tick, which comes out to like just a hair over 160, which is effectively all of our starter fuels, right? 22, 75, and 50. I think even this one is too much. So only our starter fuels can be run in this reactor, but the starter fuels represent the bulk of our reactor usage. Anyways, the fusion reactor runs when it receives a redstone signal. That is on the contrary to the fusion reactor, which stops when it receives a redstone signal. That's why I thought the redstone signal turned the fusion reactor on last time. I think I could be forgiven for that one, right? So anyways, we'll supply it fuel with this ME interface, I guess, and I think this cable, right, is part of our main net. So if I do this, hide that, and grab some PBU fuel, as well as LU 235 fuel. It's questionable whether this one reactor is fast enough to run both of them. If not, we can have one reactor for each. If the reactor is fast enough, like it's fast, obviously right now our fuel production is extra fast because we're going through our ore backlog, like our thorium, once the thorium ore backlog runs out, our fuel production will slow down considerably. Likewise, our uranium is probably already basically out. Yeah, but whatever. Anyways, extract fuel inserted there. I don't really care what fuel you start with. And hey, we're running, making a whopping 30,000 RF a tick. All right. Well, here we have it. We now have a fission reactor. I suppose we should also take the finished product and jab it back into here. So this is literally incapable of melting down. The heat is very much negative. So we just turn it on, let it do its thing, and eventually, this will turn our starter fuels into more complicated fuels. This will take it some time to, actually get through our stuff, though. So I think what we're going to do is wrap up here for today. Leave just this one reactor running. I won't build our high heat reactor until next episode, and let this process some of our beginner fuel. You know what? Actually, one more thing to do today. Let's set up the production of LEU 233 fuel, because this uses the output from one of these. I think it's spent TBU fuel makes it. So one more thing today real quick. Actually, on second thought, until we've run some of our LEU 235 fuel as well, I don't have enough of the uranium 238 to make 233 fuel. So I guess that'll have to wait. The production of my LEU 235 fuel uses like 90% of the LEU 238, or of the uranium 238 that I get for processing, right? This is 1:8, and we produce it at a 1:9 ratio. So almost all of our uranium 238 gets spent already, which means I need the output of the of this step, which consumes uranium 235, but when it's spent, it doesn't Where's the tab? Here it is. When it's spent, it only outputs uranium 238. Doesn't output any uranium 235. So I guess that means all we can do for now is let this thing run. All right then. If that's the case, why don't we just leave good enough alone? We'll let this run. Next time we'll come back and continue our nuclear fuel journey with those big, complicated, hot, and advanced fuels. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.